But then to make the leap from doing just traditional beadwork to doing traditional beadwork that talks about a completely separate theme about science and scientific ideas was much harder than I anticipated at the beginning, because each piece had to be researched like a science paper. But then I had to decide how to distill and filter the information so that, because I was deciding how to present it to somebody else. So there was, 100 ways I could have done a periodic table and represented the number or the information or the groupings, but trying to decide how I present that information to somebody else was, maybe I took it too seriously or went into too much detail, but I felt that if I'm making decisions about that this is important and I want to present it, then I have to present it accurately. And I have to go through a process of emailing friends that are chemists and asking them questions about, is this correct? And I had no idea people argued about the periodic table. I did not know that they did not agree on how things were grouped or presented, and trying to decide how am I going to present that and how would that affect how somebody else then thinks about the periodic table if I'm presenting this as true. And so to do the research for each one of these different scientific processes or different scientific historical stories was kind of exhausting, and realizing that you become a storyteller more than just an object maker, and that you're making choices for other people and how they're going to interpret that information. Yeah, and scientific processes in history is definitely a language in and of itself, and trying to find a way to present Galileo's ideas about gravity in a visual way without any language or words or numbers, but in a way that still stayed true to a native aesthetic, was kind of a confounding point. It made me much more critical of how information was presented to me, because I realized how often the historic stories were contradicting or contained errors, and that other people have made those decisions along the way and really affected how we think about these scientific milestones. The idea behind doing the science-themed pieces was a way of talking about universal knowledge that is important to every group of people regardless of their own history or their own ethnicity. Knowledge is not a rarefied possession of one group. It's accessible, but it's really our understanding of it and our transmission of it that makes it unique for each group of people. And I think that scientific knowledge is something that everybody has to have universally to understand it, or it's not your tool. You don't get to use it if you can't understand it. So if you don't understand Gregor Mendel's rate of inheritance and what that means, then you can't apply that to your own agriculture, and you don't have the cushion that provides from famine or disease, and you can't utilize that to make your own existence better. And if Native peoples and Indigenous peoples don't understand about microscopic organisms and waterborne diseases, then they don't have the power to make changes. Knowledge needs to be universal, and there seems to be some barriers that Indigenous people think that is some kind of a betrayal to step over and to really honor and revere knowledge that seems to be the property of a Western culture and not theirs.